Magician's Force was released on October 10th, 2003. This set introduced Union Monsters, a new subtype of effect monster that allowed them to equip and unequip themselves to other monsters to gain various abilities. Magician's Force also introduced spell counters, a new mechanic that allows certain cards to hold these spell counters and then remove those counters to cash in on powerful effects. Additionally, a new ban list went into effect prior to the release of Magician's Force on August 25th, 2003. Graceful Charity, Mirage of Nightmare, Reckless Greed, and Ring of Destruction were all now limited to 1 copy each, and Limiter Removal and Backup Soldier were the very first cards to move from the limited list back to unlimited at 3 copies. In this series, both MBT and myself will be traversing the sands of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Each episode will take a deep dive into Yu-Gi-Oh's past formats and unlock new strategies as new sets become available. Strap yourselves in because anything is possible. Welcome to the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, another week in the loser seat, but this time the shirt of shame feels deserved. As many of you were quick to point out, I had a very novel interpretation of last turn, both in terms of how I played the actual deck and in terms of how I built it. Turns out that some of the cards had not yet been printed. I don't have any defense other than the fact that I'm not very good at Yu-Gi-Oh! And also not very smart. Today, I have mastered every deck on the wheel, however. I am confident we will beat Cimoooooooo unless something ridiculous happens. And there's a lot that's ridiculous on this wheel. Magician's Force has a ton of really strong cards. Tribe Infecting Virus, Breaker the Magical Warrior, but most importantly, Magical Scientist. Now, Magical Scientist, if you're uninitiated, is a card that allows you to summon fusion monsters from your extra deck not once per turn. You can use this in combination with Catapult Turtle to perform one of the game's earliest and most potent first turn kills. However, the deck doesn't get particularly good, counterintuitively, until Magical Scientist gets limited. At that point, there are enough cards that cycle through your deck, things like Reload and Magical Mallet, and enablers that make sure you can find the Magical Scientist early and often. Before then, you do have 3 Scientists, but this is a combo that needs multiple cards, and without a way to consistently get Catapult Turtle onto the field, sometimes you don't get it. Regardless, there's still a lot of good stuff on this wheel. Of course, there is Scientist, there is Burn, which has gotten much better with the print of Wave Motion Cannon, but what I'm looking for is hand destruction or beatdown. We are constantly at our best when we are able to just play normal heads-up Yu-Gi-Oh! And outgrind Cimoooooooo. Let's see if we can get it done. Woo, all right, let's go. Hand destruction time, baby. I'm here to play the best deck, and I'm gonna win.
Oh, wow. That was incredibly close. I am really happy, though, that we were able to show you guys a really interesting part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history being last turn, and it may not be the last time that you guys see it. But for today, we are going to be changing up the wheel quite a bit. We've actually added a new wedge. It's really cool because Magician's Force is the next set we are entering. We, of course, have a new ban list, but the biggest impact that Magician's Force leaves on the format is that it introduces Magical Scientist. Magical Scientist helps enable one of Yu-Gi-Oh's very first FTK decks, and I'm really hoping that we get to show you guys that today. Remember, since I won the last episode, I get to spin twice, and so hopefully we have about a 25% chance here to be able to spin this. We are going to get to FTK Joseph and completely blow him out. Fingers crossed, we'll have to see what happens. But oh man. All right, let's go ahead and get to spinning. We're going to get a nice, good set of spins here, and let's see if we can get ourselves some Magical Scientist. Come on, show me that new green slice. We're slowing down. Oh, it's Burn. No, so close. All right, well, we have to go again. Burn is actually interesting because there are some new stuff from Magician's Force that is used in the deck, but we just want the Magical Scientist. I don't want anything else other than that. And it looks like, oh, wow. We almost rolled Burn twice in a row. I knew you guys would have really loved to see it, but I think there's a lot more support that Burn can still receive, although Magician's Force does do a pretty good job, but I think I want to save Burn for a later episode. It's Magician's Force, it's Magical Scientist's debut. Let's fuck Joseph up.
So here's where we ended up. The deck isn't particularly exciting, but it is particularly effective. I hope that it'll be able to get the job done. You can see we've replaced unexciting cards like Gemini Elf in a deck that desperately needed some kind of way to deal damage and win the game with their almost strictly better counterpart in Breaker the Magical Warrior. Utility beaters are exactly what we're looking for. This thing's practically A-lister the Invoker. Let's go through the individual cards. We're playing 3 copies of Breaker the Magical Warrior. This card is bonkers, and for a short period of time, we are allowed 3 copies of it. When it's normal summoned, you put a spell counter on it, and it gains 300 attack for each one. Then you can remove a spell counter on it to destroy a spell or trap on the field. We're on 2 copies of Dawn Zalug, which when it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, either discards a card from their hand, which is usually what you pick, or sends the top 2 cards of their deck to the graveyard, which is not outside of the realm of possibility if Alex is on something janky. We're on a Jinzo, of course, and 2 Magician of Faith, which was standard at the time. We're on 3 copies of Mystic Tomato. It can float into Dawn Zalug, but also Sangan. We've got Sinister Serpent, as always, followed by 2 Tribe Infecting Virus. This card is fantastic in a format with Sinister Serpent, but not fantastic enough that I feel comfortable playing it at 3. Obviously, the thing is really strong, but at the end of the day, there aren't really monotype decks yet, so mostly you're just 1-for-1ing with this card, and it doesn't resist something like a Gemini Elf on the backswing particularly well. We've got Witch of the Black Forest as well, and our secret win condition, Yatagarasu. The trick to this deck is going to 1-for-1 our opponent until Yatagarasu can win the game, at which point we'll win the game. For spells, we've got Change of Heart, Confiscation, Darkhold, Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Harpy's Feather Duster, Heavy Storm, Monster Reborn, Mystical Space Typhoon, Nobleman of Crossout, Painful Choice, Pot of Greed, Premature Burial, Raigeki, Snatch Steal, and the Forceful Sentry. I think this is the first time we are playing all one-of spells, and almost everyone wins us the game. We've got Call of the Haunted and 3 copies of Drop Off alongside Imperial Order, Mirror Force, and Ring of Destruction. This deck was really powerful and well represented at the Worlds this year. Of course, that happened before Magician's Force came out, so for the time being, we are playing a suite of cards meant to improve it. In the side deck, we've got an Exiled Force. We can find this off of Sangan, so we might want to in some matchups, as well as a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, in case it ever becomes important to prevent our opponent from banishing. We're on Triple Book of Moon. This has a lot of utility, but one of the ways in which it has utility is if Alex is on Magical Scientist. We can flip it down after the first one. Of course, priority prevents us from doing so immediately, but after the successful special summon, we can go ahead and tuck that sucker face down. We've got 2 Scapegoat in case Alex is on Beatdown, and nothing like an Azura Priest to get over said goats. We're on 2 copies of Dust Tornado in order to pop things like Wave Motion Cannon and additional copies of Imperial Order that Alex might be packing. Solemn Judgment is just generally a very good card, and I am excited to be able to wield it if he's on any sort of nonsense. And Torrential Tribute for similar reasons. It's very good at dispatching monsters that have been summoned, like Magical Scientist. All in all, I feel pretty good about this. It's going to give us an opportunity to attempt to outskill Cimo. All we have to do is win the die roll and not be subject to Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed.
I want you guys to take a moment and think back to one of the very first locals that you ever attended. What decks did you play against? Did you play against Monarch? Did you play against Blackwing? Did you play against Shadal? Well, for me, one of the very first local events I ever attended, my very first round, was against Magical Scientist FTK. And yet, for some sadistic reason, I am still here playing this game 15 years later. I still don't know why. But here is the deck we are bringing to today's duel. And oh man, this is an absolute beast. Magical Scientist is one of the most broken cards in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. For those of you who don't know, it's a dark level 1 spellcaster, which has an effect that says pay 1,000 life points, special summon 1 level 6 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck in face-up attack or defense position. That fusion monster cannot attack your opponent's life points directly and is returned to your extra deck at the end of the turn. It's funny, this is actually errata to use to say fusion deck because that's before we actually had the extra deck and all these different summoning mechanics, but I digress. When it comes to Magical Scientist, it's just broken. There's no once per turn clause anywhere on this card. Even if you weren't playing Magical Scientist FTK, you would probably still play Magical Scientist in some capacity because it's one of the first times you actually can use your extra deck in a sort of toolboxy way, and we'll talk about that as we get towards the end of the deck profile. For those of you who have never seen this FTK before, the whole goal is to get both Magical Scientist as well as Catapult Turtle onto the field. By doing so, we can pay 7,000 life points to summon 7 fusion monsters from our extra texture deck. Most of these have 2100 attack, which means when we tribute them with Catapult Turtle, we'll be dealing 1050 worth of damage to the opponent. We can then tribute off the Magical Scientist as well as the Catapult Turtle, and that is exactly 8,000 damage and will be more than enough to win the game. Now, all the rest of the cards in this deck are to facilitate us getting to these cards and also making it so that we can, slowly not die in the process, because our life points are very much a resource here, and we need to be able to clear a pathway that we can easily get in for this OTK. It also is an FTK, but I would say this version of the deck, this very first version of it, doesn't FTK nearly as much as, say, the later version that spawns from Invasion of Chaos and Ancient Sanctuary. But let's go ahead and do the card by card. 3 copies of Catapult Turtle. Again, it's one of our main combo pieces, so we want to max out on it. 3 copies of Gillosaurus. This is from Labyrinth of Nightmare. Typically, anyone who knows Yu-Gi-Oh! Knows that if you see Gillosaurus, it is only for degenerate reasons, and the primary purpose for this is to special summon it onto the field so we can tribute for Catapult Turtle if it happens to get in our hand. This is disgusting because then if we have Last Will, we can then Last Will to get Magical Scientist since Gillosaurus went from the field to the graveyard, and then we have the FTK. 1 copy of Jinzo. Even though we are playing this deck, Jinzo will shut down all of Joseph's trap cards, which means that if we get to a point where we're maybe mid-game trying to accomplish the OTK, we can set up Jinzo first and then do the OTK. Jinzo's just a beast. There's really no reason still to not play him. 3 copies of Magical Scientist for the same reason as Catapult Turtle, because we just want to see this card as quickly as possible. 3 copies of Mother Grizzly. This card has basically seen no competitive play aside from this specific deck, and the reason for that is, just like Mystic Tomato, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a water monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck in face-up attack position, and it just so happens that Catapult Turtle meets those requirements. So it's very easy to just turn 1, set Mother Grizzly, hope it gets run over, summon Catapult Turtle, and then if you have Magical Scientist in your hand, turn 2, it's game over. Mystic Tomato is also good for the same reason, because it gets to Magical Scientist because he's a dark, but you can also go into Sangan and Witch so that you can add the Scientist to your hand if you want to normal summon it on the following turn. Sangan and Witch can also just tutor anything else in the deck, so the fact that they synergize with Mystic Tomato is just insane. Moving on to the spells. 1 copy of Card Destruction. This is nice because you can get any of the combo pieces like, say, Last Will, set them, ditch your whole hand and draw a whole new one, and you might be able to get something like Monster Reborn or Premature Burial, and then you're able to get to the combo when you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So Card Destruction is a nice way to kind of get to the combo a lot quicker. Later versions of the deck play cards like Magical Mallet and Reload to just deep draw even further. Card Destruction is the only card we have at the moment, and it is limited, but we are still going to play it. 2 copies of Creature Swap. Creature Swap is actually very good in this deck because if we get to an instance where, let's say we set Mother Grizzly or Mystic Tomato and Joseph doesn't choose to attack it, we could then flip one of them, Creature Swap it for one of his monsters, and then summon the other one, attack our Tomato or Grizzly into the other monster. They will both be destroyed. We get both effects, and then we can summon Catapult Turtle and Magical Scientist, which basically makes Mother Grizzly, Mystic Tomato, and Creature Swap the OTK if you are able to do that. It is a little bit risky, but it's a great way to help get to your combo pieces. Creature Swap, however, is semi-limited. 1 Dark Hole just to clean up the board in case things are just getting out of hand. 3 copies of Giant Trunade along with Harpy's Feather Duster and Heavy Storm. We want to have as many ways to clear back row as possible to ensure that this combo can go off. We have cards like Ring of Destruction as well as Book of Moon that can be a big pain in the ass. 1 copy of Graceful Charity. This card is now limited, and I think for good reason, because otherwise this deck would be even more frightening. The nice thing about Graceful Charity is the discard. So being able to draw 3 is great, but you can pitch something like Catapult Turtle or Magical Scientist and bring it back with Monster Reborn or Premature Burial. It just makes the combo that much easier. 3 copies of Last Will. For as strong of a card as Last Will is, it really didn't start seeing play until this particular deck. The reason is there wasn't much of an incentive for you to want to destroy your own monsters or to get something onto the field after one of your monsters was sent from the field to the graveyard. You'll notice like in later decks like Monarch, that's the case, but up until now, there really wasn't a payoff for it. Magical Scientist changes this entirely because you can special summon any monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck, which means that you can get both Magical Scientist and Catapult Turtle. This also is not once per turn, so there are instances where if you just like crash one of your monsters and have double Last Will, that also will get you to the OTK. Monster Reborn, as mentioned, it's just a combo piece. Painful Choice. This is just disgusting because this can actually facilitate the FTK, which can be done on turn 1, and Joseph will pretty much have zero interaction against it. There's a few other cards that could facilitate it. I think the absolute minimum number of cards you need for the FTK is 3, but it's still nasty, and Painful Choice is a great enabler for this. One Pot of Greed, of course, more card draw, Premature Burial, Regeki, again, just to clean things up. What's also nice is that sometimes you want to get in some damage with some of these monsters, because if the OTK gets thwarted, you need to have some way to actually kill the opponent. And so at times, if your life points are low enough that you're not able to just win via Catapult Turtle, using Regeki, hitting in with some of these, and then proceeding to do the OTK is necessary, and that's why we still want to be on the board wipes. 3 copies of Reasoning. This is another gift from Pharaonic Guardian. Your opponent declares a level from 1 through 12. You mill the top cards of your deck until you get to a monster, and if it's the correct level, it goes to the graveyard, but if they're wrong, you get to summon it to the field. This is great because even if they call it correctly, it may not matter, because sometimes you can just Monster Reborn or Premature Burial it back, but if they're wrong, you're just going to get a free special summon to the field that helps enable Last Will if you open Catapult Turtle. There's just so many combo enablers here. Later iterations of the deck only play about 5 monsters just so they can always get something off of Reasoning, and it's just insane. The only trap card we are playing is Call of the Haunted, and the reason for that is because it's just another Monster Reborn. Like I said, you're not going to be FTKing every single game with this deck, but Call of the Haunted is good for turn 2 or turn 3. If you need that one turn of setup, let's say you need Mother Grizzly or Mystic Tomato to get destroyed, then maybe Call of the Haunted will get you whatever you need because you get that extra special summon, and so that's why we are playing just the only trap card. We want to have as much gas as we possibly can, and trap cards really don't do a lot for us. Moving on to the side deck, 1 Cyber Jar. This card's actually not bad in this deck because you can summon most of your good cards. You can't summon Catapult Turtle, but it does get you to more combo pieces. It just does suck though, because at the same time, you're giving your opponent 5 cards to kind of stop your OTK. It is a little bit slower, which is why I have it in the side deck. 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. I just put it in here because it's Magician's Force. It's a nice little board wipe. It's a way to, depending on what deck Joseph is playing, we can kind of hold him off a little bit, and it's just a good card all around. 3 copies of Book of Moon. This is for if he is on Magical Scientist, so that way we can Book of Moon either the turtle or the scientist and be able to kill it on our following turn. It doesn't interact with Jinzo, which is why I'm going with this over something like Ring of Destruction. Ring of Destruction will also lower our life points, which makes it harder for us to OTK. 3 Mystical Space Typhoon in case we need any more spell and trap destruction. 1 Swords to stall the game. 1 Ceasefire. This is a nice way to get a little bit of extra damage in if we're just shy, and so we might bring this in games 2 and 3, but I didn't want to main deck it. Magic Cylinder for the same reason. 1 copy of Mirror Force. This is actually not bad to protect our field if we can't get the OTK off. And finally, 3 copies of Waboku. Waboku, again, for the same reason, is that it protects our monsters, so if we have Scientist and Catapult Turtle up, it's good, but also it just gives us more time to achieve the OTK. Again, I didn't want to main deck them, and it really depends on what Joseph is playing. If he's more aggressive, I think you might see these come in, but we'll just have to see what he is on. And then finally, for the extra deck, this is something that we haven't really talked about before. I know I've had these slots filled in, but now we can actually do a discussion on it. So we have 3 copies of Empress Judge, we have 2 Punished Eagle, and 3 Roaring Ocean Snake. All that matters here is that all of these are under level 6, and they all have 2100 attack. These are the highest level 6 attack monsters in the game at the time, and so these are typically what's going to facilitate the OTK. We also have 2 copies of Fiend Skull Dragon. This is nice because it's going to negate flip effect monsters. Magical Scientist is just a toolbox, so being able to have access to these types of cards as well. They're also 2000 attack, so they're not the worst either if we actually have to use them for purposes like that. We also have 3 copies of Ryu Senshi for the same reason. Ryu Senshi is good because he can actually make it so that trap cards will potentially be thwarted, because just by paying 1000 we can negate them. Yes, that does take us away from the OTK a little bit, but at the same time, if it helps us get to the point where the opponent will die regardless, then it is well worth it. We also have 2 copies of Thousand Eyes Restrict, again, just to get monsters out of the way, and that way we can actually attack for some damage before proceeding with the OTK and make it a lot easier for us to be able to do so. Remember, Magical Scientist says the monster cannot attack your opponent's life points directly, but it can attack your opponent's monster. So summoning like an Empress Judge and being able to attack into like a low attack monster, like say a Mystic Tomato, you're still going to do 700 damage, and when the damage threshold is so close for this OTK, sometimes that actually does make a difference. I'm super excited to show this off. This is a deck that a lot of people really don't think have ever seen the true power of, and I really hope to demonstrate that today. I can't wait to see what Joseph spun on the wheel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to duel. Joseph, happy FTK day, because oh boy, going based off of the artwork of your sleeves, I can imagine that this is going to be a very interesting episode.
Oh, I can imagine. There's a couple of really unfun degenerate decks that are playable, and this time I have the knowledge necessary to not screw up my own combo and include banned cards. Don't worry.
You say that now. We'll see what happens by the end of the episode. I'm sure, obviously both of us are completely infallible, and we would never do anything to ruin the integrity of the series. God forbid.
Oh,
Let's go ahead and do that rock, papers. Oh, sure.
Pot of Desires is legal, right?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and use
good.
Desires and banish all those magical scientists out of your deck. All right. Let's see what we get here. And oh, man, 2021. I love this year. This is great.
Can someone, I know there's someone keeping a tally in the comments. I don't think I've won a rock, paper, scissors in months.
At least throughout the year, it has not happened, but I can't say I know for sure. I think you were winning a few at the beginning, weren't you?
I might be winning RPSs, but I certainly wasn't winning games.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. I will go first, and good luck, because you're going to need it. We will shout out our patron over on Patreon, Mr. Rock Lee 325. Thank you so much for your support. And I will start by drawing a card. All right, Joseph, we're going to start off big here. Let's see how good you are at this game. I'm going to activate Reasoning.
Oh my god, you didn't. Oh my god, you didn't. Oh no. Okay, chat. All of that speculation I did during the wheel about how Alex was going to pick Magical Scientist has turned out correct. Reasoning is a hallmark of said deck. So, Scientist, I believe, is a 2?
It is a 1.
Is a 1.
I will give you the correct information.
Is a 3.
Yes, Gillosaurus is a 3, Catapult Turtle is a 5. You have a lot of things to worry about that could get hit off of this Reasoning.
There's not really a good pick here, is there? And I guess that's why the deck was so good, right?
Potentially. So what are you going to choose?
I don't think I care if you summon the Gillosaurus. Can you kill me with Scientist right now? I think you can. I'm going to call 5.
Going to call 5?
Yes.
All right. Best of luck to you. There's a Reasoning. Pot of Greed.
That's good.
Mystic Tomato. He missed.
Thank God. Okay. Whew. That's very doable.
Well, it didn't matter because I had the Catapult Turtle in my hand anyway, because we're just going to go ahead and tribute summon him into the field.
Yeah, there's the boy.
Yeah, and we're going to follow that up with Last Will, Joseph. How does that sound?
It sounds like we may be going to game 2 pretty quickly here. Wow!
Oh, don't you dare hit that concede button, because we have to show this off for anyone who has never seen this before.
Oh my god. All right, well, very fun game 1, and now we will get to see why Yu-Gi-Oh! Almost perished in 2003.
With Magical Scientist on the field, I will pay 1,000 life points, and I will summon a copy of Empress Judge to the field. I will then use the effect of my Catapult Turtle to tribute off Empress Judge and deal 1050 damage to your life points.
That's fine.
I will now use that effect 6 more times, and I will summon 6 more monsters that have 2100 attack, and that will deal you 1050 each. That leaves you at a total of 650 life points. We're now going to use our Catapult Turtle to sacrifice our Magical Scientist for an additional 150. And look at that, you're at exactly 500. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice the Catapult Turtle to himself to deal you the remaining 500.
Oh boy, die rolls, die rolls, die rolls. Someday I'll get good at them.
Good game, buddy. Good game. Fun and interactive,
great game.
right?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very happy about it.
You know, Joseph, as fun as that was, the biggest downside of playing Magical Scientist FTK is that I don't know what you're playing. I have an idea from the wheel, but it could have been anything, and so it's really hard to sideboard when I have no idea what I'm sideboarding against.
Is Hanawada out yet? How do I board against this? Let's see. I can speculate for another 4 minutes so we can get ad revenue, but I don't think anything other than me drawing a good enough hand to prevent you from getting Scientist onto the field is going to be able to stop this.
Well, good luck. Let's hope that you can do it and force that game 3.
Oh, and this is not it. Oh my god. Okay, we're gonna normal summon Breaker the Magical Warrior.
The boy, the icon of Magician's Force, and my favorite card.
I'm gonna set 2, and you are good to go.
Okay, I will Draw. Anything on the draw phase?
I have nothing on the draw phase.
Okay, that's a good sign. I'll just head into main 1 then, assuming you don't have anything in standby phase.
I do not.
Well, we're going to start by activating a copy of Harpy's Feather Duster.
Oh, God. All right. Was hoping to deploy this at a slightly better time.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. So that is going to get negated, and that will also shut off the rest of my spells for the turn.
Now, this is slightly less good than it's been in the past. Obviously, Breaker the Magical Warrior complicates things.
A little bit, but at the same time, you know, since the Magical Scientist deck is so reliant on having all those life points, it does put you in a bit of a predicament because you want to find ways to preserve them, and Breaker does have 1900 attack, so that is something I do have to consider. I think I will just go ahead and set a card, and I'll just pass the turn. Go ahead.
All right, I will draw for turn.
Would you like to pay for that Imperial Order?
I have a rough decision. I think I am going to pay for the Imperial Order. Big surprise, okay. I know.
Shocker.
So what could the set card be? You have Mystic Tomato.
You saw that.
You have Gilasaurus.
You haven't seen that.
Preserve your life total. This is rough. I almost wanted to let this Imperial Order lapse. Obviously, I've got a lot of really powerful spells too, but yours literally win you the game. It could be a Magician of Faith, but that seems pretty slow for what you're trying to accomplish.
Understandable.
I'm going to put you on Mystic Tomato.
Okay.
And I'll summon a Mystic Tomato of my own.
Sure, the inferior Mystic Tomato.
We'll go to the battle phase. I'm going to walk my Breaker the Magical Warrior into your set card.
It was a Magical Scientist.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. And then I'll attack directly with Mystic Tomato.
I will take that 1400.
All right, and that's all from me, buddy.
All right, I will draw, and hopefully we get a good one. That would be good if it weren't for the circumstances.
So now things get a little crustier for you. Magical Scientist is a really strong FTK card, but if you don't have exactly 8,000 life points, you gotta play a little differently.
Absolutely, and I think Imperial Order is also a big problem as well, since I would say half of my deck is probably spell cards, so...
Yeah, at least.
Just trying to get to every single combo enabler possible. Just like in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, Imperial Order is still gonna hose decks like this left and right. I will just pass. Go ahead.
All right. I will pay 700 in the standby phase.
Sure.
And game 1 was pretty fast, but I think game 2 might be over as well. Do you have an answer to Yatagarasu?
That's pretty good. All right, so I'm going to take a total of 3,700 here.
And then we'll proceed to the end phase, and Yata returns to my hand.
That's pretty nasty. I will not draw for turn here. Go to main phase 1, and honestly, you got it. I will concede, but let me tell you, if you didn't have Imperial Order, you were 100% dead that game.
I can imagine. Well, losing on the first turn to an uncounterable errata card. How does it feel to be on the receiving end of an FTK, Alex? Mine was only one card.
Yatagarasu, I mean, Magical Scientist is something, right? But that just demonstrated how strong of a card Yatagarasu still is. There was nothing I could have done about that at all. You had me fully on lockdown, but I get to go first for game 3. And Magical Scientist will prevail. I can feel it. Joseph, you better hope that I do not get a hand that wins immediately. Good luck, buddy.
Seems unlikely. I think you have never failed to draw broken in a game 3 that we've ever played, and your combo requires, what, 1 card?
I wouldn't say 1 card. It's usually 3. I don't know if there is a 2-card combination with it. We'll have to see. I'll draw for turn. I will start off with Pot of Greed. I think that's a good way to start things off.
Pot of Greed. Wow, crazy.
Hey. Graceful Charity is now at 1, so I don't want to hear it.
You're gonna hear it if you follow it up with a Graceful Charity.
I am not, unfortunately. I will actually have a rather boring turn, I think. All I'm really going to do is set a monster, and I'm going to pass to you.
Interesting. I'll draw for turn. Oh, that's an odd one. All right, well, I liked your Pot of Greed so much, we're going to try for one, too.
Hey, go for it.
Oh, gross. All right, time for the better card. Confiscation. Show me that hand. Let me see it.
Well, I am happy that you're 1,000 lower, because that is going to help me. But unfortunately, you're going to hate your options here.
Oh, I like my options very much. Wait, what the fuck? Wait, sorry, excuse me?
Would you like to rephrase, sir?
Did you open everything? Scientist, turtle, creature swap, Geki, reborn? Jeez Louise.
I don't think there's a good pick for you here.
Yeah, me neither, buddy. I guess I am going to take reborn. God, my kingdom for the forceful century.
Let's see if you got it.
So next we are going to try to dark hole.
Not my mother, Grizzly.
Oh, thank the Lord. I was like, I know this idiot is on recruiters. We're not letting that happen. Okay, all right. You know, sometimes Breaker is just a Gemini elf.
It is, so I will take 1900. It's nice to get my life total a little bit lower.
And then main phase 2, I'm going to set 2 cards and try to recall everything that you were playing.
Would you like me to go through it for you one more time?
Oh, if you wouldn't mind.
Creature swap, magical scientist, Raigeki, catapult turtle, and Jinzo.
Jinzo's an odd one. I understand why you're playing him, but it doesn't make me very happy. Okay, I'll pass turn.
Okay, I will draw. Anything on draw.
Yeah, put it in the graveyard! Drop off, baby!
Oh, God.
How does it feel? This has been me for 2 weeks!
Is this where I get hosed by this card now?
Oh, I'm hoping.
Joseph, that was a really good one.
Oh, last will! Oh, not last will!
That's pretty good. Okay, the question is now, how do we do this? The FTK is looking more and more difficult to pull off. We do have some things we can do about it. I think this should work this way, but I'm not 100% sure. I will normal summon Magical Scientist.
Okay.
I will pay 1,000 life points with priority and activate his effect.
That is obviously fine.
I will summon... I don't think this decision particularly matters. I'll just go ahead and special summon this copy of Fiend Skull Dragon.
Ooh, that is a card. Okay.
Is that fine?
Oh, I'm not super happy about it. Yeah, that's fine.
I will activate Creature Swap.
And now I must think. This isn't very pretty, but I think I have to do it. I'm going to Ring of Destruction, targeting Magical Scientist.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll both take 300.
Would have been better.
Scientist is destroyed.
If I could have done this without you summoning anything, but priority forbids me from doing so.
So I will take your breaker. You'll get my Fiend Skull Dragon. And I'll just go to the end phase, and that Fiend Skull Dragon goes back to my fusion deck.
All right, there you go.
And I will pass the turn. Thanks so much for letting me keep the counter on that breaker.
No problem, I guess, I would say. This is gross. God, that's so much damage. I think I actually have to just... Do I have to protect my life total, actually?
You know that the combo enabler is gone for now.
Zalug is 14, right?
14, yes.
All right, we'll set 1 pass.
Okay. I will draw for turn. Now, that would have been nice a turn ago, but we can't get everything we want. I think I might just put the screws on you. I'm going to Raigeki.
I was really hoping you were not going to do that. Oh, I need this card so bad.
Oh, that was super big. I'm going to normal summon Witch, and we're going to hit him for 3,000.
Jesus. Okay, sure. No problem.
Go ahead.
All right, I will draw for turn. Oh, wow. Well, that simplifies things a lot. Delinquent Duo.
Oh, come on. Off the top.
Get him out of the hand. Yeah, just get him out of the hand, please.
I mean, you know what they both are, so it's not like there's any surprises.
Not only do I know what they both are, I'll be really happy to get that Jinzo back.
Oh, fuck, dude.
This was really painful. I had a really cool play where I could have reborn the Magical Scientist and done a shitload of damage, except for the fact that I'm not playing a fusion deck. And I'll get in for 5.
Yeah, 500. Your breaker goes back to the graveyard. Now I really hate that I do not have that Raigeki anymore. Hopefully we can get something off the top. Oh, well, that could be interesting. I suppose I don't have much of a choice, so I'll fire it off.
Oh, this could be interesting. Huh. What do I expect that you have left? Mystic Tomato's kind of an asshole. Which of the Black Force is on field? So you've got, at maximum, a couple of recruiters left. If I call 4 and hit a recruiter, I feel very good about myself. But if I call 4 and I hit a turtle or a scientist, how bad is that for me? If I hit a turtle, you can go Witch into Scientist, and that will kill me. If I hit Scientist, you can go Witch into Jinzo, take 13, go to 3k. You have 3 shots to kill me. You'll have to do it in 2, which you cannot. Oh, this is a tough one. Wow.
It is.
I think I have to play for Turtle. Although playing...
So you're going to call 5?
No, playing for Turtle's not good either, because if you hit Mother Grizzly, you can do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just take slightly more damage. It would be 1,000. That would put you at enough to do it 3 times, which is the threshold. All right, I'm going to call 4 and get extremely lucky.
He's calling 4. There's Duster. There's Preem.
Hey!
Ooh.
Even better.
Gillosaurus. What do I want to do with you, buddy? I suppose I'll put Gillosaurus in attack position. I'm not happy about it, but...
I can imagine.
Yeah, that was the most lackluster reasoning out of all the targets in my deck. But you got to do what you got to do. I think I know the line here, and it feels like it's correct, but it's also very, very risky. But I think I have to do it because staring down Jinzo is just a mess. I'm going to go to the battle phase.
Yep.
I'm going to attack Witch into Jinzo.
That is fine.
So I will take 1,300 here. I will use the effect of Witch.
All good.
I am going to grab myself a Magical Scientist.
Yep.
I will go to main phase 2. I will normal summon said Scientist.
Sure.
With priority, I will pay 1,000.
Oh, I see.
I am going to summon 1,000 Eyes Restrict.
Right.
I am going to use the effect of 1,000 Eyes Restrict and take your Jinzo.
All right, there you go.
I will proceed to the end phase. It will just fall off because 1,000 Eyes Restrict will go back to the extra deck, and I will pass the turn.
All right, I will draw. Oh my god. Wow. All right, we are going to set 1 and pass turn, buddy.
That's... Is it really going to come down to this?
Tell me about it.
Gonna draw. Okay, now I gotta think. I currently have 1,700 damage on board. That means I need 1,000 more to be able to kill you. The biggest downside to Magical Scientist, probably the only downside to Magical Scientist, is that the monsters that you summon cannot attack your opponent directly. So the question is there a way to win with how the board is currently set up? This is so frustrating because you have me at the perfect life total that I can't just automatically win the game. Oh, that's rough. That is rough. I gotta go for it. I'm gonna normal summon Mother Grizzly.
Okay.
I am going to switch Magical Scientist to defense position.
Yep.
Go to the battle phase.
Yeah.
I will attack for 1,400.
And you got it. Oh my god.
What was the set?
It was Harpy's Feather Duster. I just didn't have enough to take out. No, I wasn't drawing a monster for a while. There's Zaylu.
That third game, I'm actually really happy that third game came out the way that it did because it demonstrated how Magical Scientist, while it is the FTK just blowout machine that we all know, it showed how versatile and flexible the card really is. The fact that I was able to use it for creature swap fodder to take your monster.
Right.
The fact that I could have, and this is the play I wanted to do, if you did have a trap, I could have summoned Ryu Senshi off Magical Scientist, and if I had 100 more life points, I could have negated any potential card that could have stopped you from killing me if it were a trap. Book of Moon, obviously, I couldn't have done anything. I would have happily been taking that risk and feeling a lot more confident had I had that line, but I'm also happy that I drew Mother Grizzly, which happened to have 1,400 attacks specifically, with you being on 27. I can keep Scientists in defense in case you had a Mirror Force set. I was feeling pretty okay.
Yeah, you know, that's Scientist. Not much else to say than that. This deck is crazy strong, and it gets stronger, which is frightening. What was your hand game 2?
Oh, okay. So when you hosed me with your Imperial Order, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
My hand was, what was the fifth? Oh, it was the Feather Duster, right? It was the Feather Duster. So the Duster, which you negated, it was Painful Choice, Reborn, Catapult Turtle, Magical Scientist. You were 100% dead to rights if that Feather Duster resolved.
Holy shit.
I would have had a way to get Catapult Turtle to the field basically because of Monster Reborn, and then I could have easily then brought out Magical Scientist, and then it was basically just game over.
Yeah. That was rough. I do feel like a lot of this was just completely determined by die roll Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Absolutely.
If you win the die roll, you can FTK, and if I win the die roll, I can set Imperial Order. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Is this much different than Gumblar loops and the like?
I was about to say, a lot of people kind of harken back to the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! As like the glory days and like just cry out for wanting to play this older style of Yu-Gi-Oh! If anything, this series has given people a reason to not want to play that older style of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Right, yeah. No, and I think that a lot of people probably should understand that game-breaking problems with the format, they're not new. This was, I think, the first time that Konami got a card so absolutely wrong as Magical Scientist. Like, obviously stuff like Confiscation, Delinquent Duo, the Forceful Sentry, Reborn, and the like, obviously they're strong. They're extremely good, but they're part of a larger package of good stuff cards that go into every deck. Scientist was the first complete, absolute mistake of design philosophy that not only wins the game immediately, but enabled an entire deck based around turboing it out. Like, this is an innocuous card, but for the fact that Catapult Turtle exists.
You wouldn't say that last turn was the first mistake in card design?
Well, last turn is last turn. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of weird for two formats in a row, Konami to have accidentally released a card that's like okay in a vacuum, but when you remember there's like exactly one enabler, suddenly it's the most crazy thing in the history of time.
What's also so unbelievable, and you mentioned some of the most powerful cards we have in the format, like Change of Heart, Reborn, the Hand Destruction, etc. Magical Scientist was a common. Cool. This card was at the common rarity.
Awesome.
So that just shows how they completely overlooked how good this card was, because if this was Konami 2021 we're talking about, this would have been short print, secret rare, Starlight rare exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
Because of how broken it is. I also really love this card because it's the first time we've really dipped into, well, at least I have, because you could have too, but it was the first time that I got to dip into the extra deck. There really hasn't been a reason, aside from playing some sort of like gimmicky fusion deck, I suppose, to go into the fusion deck, but Magical Scientist actually gives you a reason to do so. I was saying in my deck building portion that Magical Scientist is even good enough just standalone that even if you're not playing this version of the deck, even if you're just playing Hand Destruction, you could just jam Magical Scientist in, because Magical Scientist can become a Thousand Eyes Restrict to clear Jinzo. It can become a Ryu Senshi to negate traps. It can become a Fiend Skull Dragon to negate flip effects, so that could have helped taken out something like your Magician of Faith, for example. There's actually a reasonable amount of toolbox fusion monsters that we've received over the past few sets specifically, and then it just so happens that thanks to the older sets with Empress Judge, Roaring Ocean Snake, and Punished Eagle, we actually have these monsters that have slightly enough attack power that if you do the math, it equals to exactly 8,000 to be able to FTK on the first turn. Absolutely mind-blowing deck. This was one of the first decks I ever lost to when I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At locals, so I'm kind of scarred by that. Now people understand why. This deck is just, it's crazy.
And of course, we were talking beforehand, this isn't even arguably the best the Magical Scientist gets. Like, the answers are fewer and farer between right now because we're earlier in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you do get to play 3 copies of Magical Scientist, which is not something you get for very long. But it arguably gets a lot better as you get, like, Monster Gate, Demock, all of the cards like Reload and Magical Mallet that let you cycle your hand. I mean, you pretty much opened the combo every single game, but you can open the combo every single game, often without waiting like you had to turn 1 of this game. It's just really an incredible card.
Right. That's one of the things with this version of the deck that is a bit different. It is slower because a lot of the time you have to wait on your recruiters such as Grizzly or Tomato to get you whatever your missing combo piece is. Catapult Turtle being a level 5 definitely definitely slows the deck down, but it's not impossible to work around. There's Reasoning, there's Mother Grizzly, there's Reborn spells in tandem with Painful Choice and Graceful Charity. You do the best that you can, but when you get to the later iterations in Invasion of Chaos and Ancient Sanctuary, where you can basically just turbo into the combo, it doesn't matter if Magical Scientist is limited because you're going to be able to access it most of the time regardless. What's also interesting is that you mentioned how Magical Scientist isn't at 3 for very long. On the next ban list, Scientist is still at 3. The next ban list, the only changes that they actually make from Magician's Force are putting Breaker and Tribe Infecting Virus to 1.
Finally.
That is just astonishing to me.
The Tribe
right?
Infecting Virus hit. Oh, thank God.
I know the Tribe Infecting Virus that we've all been calling out for years finally happened just back in 2003. That's really fascinating to me because that almost makes me believe that they didn't know that this deck existed at the time, or they didn't care, one or the other, when they made that ban list after the release of this set, because with a FTK that's this degenerate and rather consistent at the same time, even if it's not even an FTK, it's just the OTK, how could they, in their right mind, allow that to be legal for, or at least as consistent as it is presently, how can they allow that to be illegal for as long as it is?
And to that I would say, I don't know, you tell me, buddy. It is interesting. I mean, we had, what, 6 consecutive firewall formats, you know? Sometimes Konami waits a little bit before taking the FTKs out of the playable pool.
Well, to be fair, if they want to help sell Magician's Force and everyone learns about these amazing new cards that come in the set that help you just automatically win the game.
Even.
At Common, yeah, you could just buy a booster pack right now and you'll probably pull one. Maybe that's a tempting offer and the path that they just chose to go with, and they thought, nah, let it go. We'll see what happens. And then obviously they do change because I believe the February 2004 list, it does ultimately get limited. Does it stop the deck? No, but it definitely is weakened to a degree.
Yeah.
But Joseph, this was actually the first time you got to play hand control, at least from what it seemed like, given the drop-offs, the Don Zalug that I saw after the fact. I know you're going up against Magical Scientist, but how did it feel? I mean, what were you, thinking or brewing in the process of this?
I mean, I like the deck. I think it's really sweet. I like that I got to play 3 Breaker for a week in place of
that's cool.
Gemini Elf. Of course, it unfortunately doesn't have a lot of game versus combo. This is just how early Yu-Gi-Oh was, right? Like, you didn't have hand traps, so you had to win the die roll, and then you had to have the perfect suite of reactive spells and traps in order to interact with your opponent. And this is at a time when stuff like Solemn Judgment wasn't really being played in main decks, if at all. So you kind of had to hope for Imperial Order Ring of Destruction or bust. And sometimes I had Imperial Order, and sometimes I busted, you know?
It's unfortunate, too, because during this early part of Yu-Gi-Oh's lifespan, we do get some more FTKs that become prevalent. I don't know if they're as good as Magical Scientist, but we might showcase them. We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
There really is just such a minimal degree of interaction with them, and that's just by the way that the card game was. And then even if you want to look past the FTKs, look at a card like Chaos Emperor Dragon in Invasion of Chaos. There's no way to deal with that card at the time.
Right.
There's no card with priority that allows you to interact and stop a card that would send all cards to the graveyard. That was like a new sort of like game mechanic without them really coming out and saying it.
Right.
And it's, when you look at where Yu-Gi-Oh has come now, I think it's actually a godsend that we have a lot more options to deal with decks like this compared to the past, because back then you were really just praying that you could win that die roll.
Yep, and that's the way it goes. I mean, we're kind of in a renaissance right now in terms of decks being okay with going second. It's important to recognize that going first blinds started decades and decades ago.
So guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Crisis is next, and that's going to bring with it a whole new suite of cards. I think we finally get to dive into Warrior Toolbox. I've been looking forward to that, but we'll have to spin it on the wheel. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have to shout out our patrons as always. So big shout outs to Pony Stark, Joshua Wiley, Tim00x3, Michael Dente, Mystic Walk, Oli, Neo Cypher Slacker, Sylvia Wilds, and Gayoko Part 2, Dan the Man Hoban, Synchro Guy, GW, Jarvis Martin, G-Man99, Logan Thomas, Dragon Lord, Dolly Wop, Peter Gregory, Joe Tagonist, Thomas Nelson, Emil Cohen, Draconic, Alex Smith, Jordan Coons, Timothy Chen, Jesse Wood, True Nerdgasm, Naru Celeste, Chris Hood, and Jordan Husey. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and we will see you next time.